What do you think of when someone mentions the term Shakespearean comedy? A play that contains plotting and counter-plotting, bit of disguise, and ultimately ends in 2 or more happily ever after weddings, perhaps. Or maybe it could be defined as a play which revolves around love, the talk of love, with plenty of elaborate word gags, and features a fool who's given licence to reveal often unwelcome truths about characters and the world. I believe both of these definitions are apt, although not complete. However, I wonder whether the role of friendship is often understated when a Shakespearean comedy is discussed. Take Don Pedro's joined by the hip friendship with Claudio, Beatrice's remorseless loyalty to Hero in Much Ado About Nothing, Antonio's dog-like devotion towards Sebastian in Twelfth Night. And how about the bonds between Rosalind and Celia, and Adam and Orlando in As You Like It? And so this essay will explore the theme of friendship in As You Like It and compare it to the remarkable alliance of George and Lenny in Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. Stay tuned, you're watching Schofield on Shakespeare.
No one told you life was gonna be this way.
We first meet Rosalind and Celia in Act 1, Scene 2 of As You Like It, and it is clear that these cousins are living in circumstances which would test the very strongest friendships. Celia's father, Duke Frederick, has banished Rosalind's father, Duke Senior, away from the court into the Forest of Arden, and usurped his role as ruler. It would surely be completely natural for Rosalind to feel some feelings of resentment towards the daughter of the man who treated her own father so unjustly, or at least for their friendship to cool. Yet their early exchanges show just how honest and relaxed they are with each other. Celia instinctively picks up on Rosalind's low moods and makes this offer. You know my father, have no child but I, nor none is like to have, and truly when he dies, thou shalt be his heir. For what he hath taken away from thy father perforce, I will render thee again in affection. Celia knows the injustice of what her father has done, and offers to right the wrong by selflessly nominating her dear friend to inherit on her death. Her affection for Rosalind is natural and deep-rooted, as shown in her use of pleading adjectives, while she entreats her friend to cheer up. My sweet Rose, my dear Rose, be merry. For some of us, the mere fact of having parents and war can be enough to terminate the keenest of friendships. However, things get even more perilous for Rosalind and Celia when Duke Frederick comes to see the two girls with his eyes full of anger. In Act 1, Scene 3, without any attempt at preamble, he orders Rosalind, "Dispatch you with your safest haste and get you from our court." The imperative dispatch and get, and the brevity of the utterance show that the man is in deadly earnest, something he confirms categorically in his very next speech when he vows that if Rosalind is found so near our public court as 20 miles, thou diest for it. Rosalind is Duke Frederick's niece and beloved companion to his daughter, yet the corrosive atmosphere of jealousy and insecurity that he has helped concoct leaves no room for family loyalties or basic chivalry towards the female sex. He remains unmoved by pleas, leaving Celia to make a startling offer. With the exit of her father, she once again beseeches her cousin and best friend to be cheerful and questions, "Knowst thou not the Duke has banished me his daughter?" This, of course, is technically incorrect, as Rosalind dolefully points out. Duke Frederick may be an insecure brute, but even he is unlikely to exile his only child. Celia then continues in a growing swirl of passionate rhetoric. "No, hath not? Rosalind lacks then the love which teaches thee that thou and I am one. Shall we be sundered? Shall we part, sweet girl? No, let my father seek another heir." Celia's words emphasise the extraordinary bond that the two girls share. Thou and I are one. They are united spiritually, and so cannot and must not be parted physically. Her rhetorical questions show her horror and disbelief at the prospect of having to live life without her friends. Sundered means to be broken or wrenched apart, and this violent past participle implies the physical pain that would result in both of them if they were to be separated. And so Celia proposes that they both leave the court, young, naive and female as they are, to try to find Rosaline's father in the forest of Arden. This decision shows the triumph of genuine friendship over shallow jealousy and paranoia. Duke Frederick tried to convince Celia about his decision by saying that she would be more popular, wilt show more bright and seem more virtuous when she is gone. Celia ignores this self-serving argument completely and instead abandons close family for the comfort of a true friend, her cousin Rosaline's. So Celia and Rosaline vow to go on a journey of many miles, determined to stay together and to find safety. Does that remind you of those other great friends from our shared literary heritage, George and Lenny in Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men? Celia and Rosaline have to leave Duke Frederick's court in order that the latter escapes the death penalty, whilst the opening to Of Mice and Men sees George and Lenny having left Weed in order to escape being lynched over a false accusation of rape. We first meet them eating beans, without ketchup sadly, and sleeping rough by the Salinas River, a few miles south of Soledad in California. At first sight, the two men's relationship seems volatile and unstable, as seen in the way George speaks to Lenny. In part 1, when Lenny asks him where the pair are going, George erupts. "So you forgot that already, did you? I gotta tell you again, do I? Jesus Christ, you're a crazy bastard." You can sense George getting more and more worked up in the tag questions. Did you? Do I? While his use of profanities show a fiery burst of frustration towards Lenny, as well as perhaps stereotypically underlining their statuses as hard-travelling ranchmen, as opposed to, say, smooth-talking city traders or bankers. Nonetheless, as we get to know the two men, it is clear that underneath his barrage of swear words and disgusted exclamations, George feels a genuine deep bond towards his opposite. This is shown beautifully at the end of part 1, when Lenny offers to go away and leave his long-suffering friend at home. George's reaction is revealing. He looks quickly and searchingly at him. "I've been mean, ain't I?" "No, look, I was just fooling, Lenny. Of course I want you to stay with me." I wonder whether the narrator's description of George's look says just as much as his speech. The adverbs quickly and searchingly show George staring intently into his friend's face to find out whether he indeed means to carry out his friend to branch out on his own into some mythical caves in the hills above. His tag question, "Ain't I?" is far softer and gentler than earlier tirades, before he goes on to openly reveal his feelings for his friends. He wants to be with him, to remain his companion, even if he gets incredibly frustrated by him from time to time. And there is no doubt that the simpler, essentially kind-hearted Lenny wants to remain George's comrade too. In part 4, Crooks, the black stable buck, makes the mistake of taunting him with the possibility of George not returning from his lad's night out in town. Look how Lenny reacts. Suddenly, Lenny's eyes centred and grew quiet and mad. He stood up and walked dangerously towards Crooks. "Who hurt George?" he demanded. Just as George's eye movements in part 1 show him checking how serious Lenny is about his offer to head off on his own, so Lenny's eyes also confirm the pair's friendship. Faced with what he believes is a person who may be involved in hurting his friend, his eyes react instinctively and aggressively as they centre and grow quiet and mad. Lenny does not have the understanding to appreciate that Crooks is just a lonely, deeply unhappy outsider who is merely getting his own back on the white other by winding him up. He doesn't have the understanding to appreciate that Crooks is merely talking about George hypothetically getting hurt, as shown in his simple question that uses the past tense, "Who hurt George?" However, Lenny does have something deep inside him that would do anything to stick up for and protect his friends. Both Shakespeare and Steinbeck show us that insisting on maintaining long-lasting friendships can have disadvantages. Celia has to run away from her own father to maintain her close friendship with Rosaline and take on a disguise as Aliena in As You Like It. During a time of few jobs and terrible economic uncertainty, George has to run away from paid employment in weed in order to maintain his friendship with Lenny in Of Mice and Men. And not only does Celia have to temporarily abandon her own father, but both girls soon realise that disguise and adventure doesn't actually make up for lack of food and comfort. In Act 2, Scene 4 of the play, Rosaline, disguised as a young man, Ganymede, wails, "I could find in my heart to disgrace my man's apparel and to cry like a woman, but I must comfort the weaker vessel, as doublet and hose ought to show itself courageous to petticoat, therefore courage, good aliena." Rosaline is clearly suffering, as shown in her desire to cry like a woman. This simile may despair modern-day feminists, but in Shakespeare's time, women were unequivocally seen as weaker, more fragile than men. The reference to women being the weaker vessel echoes Peter chapter 3, verse 7 of the Bible, in which husbands are urged to give honour unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel. Even the clothes imagery hints at the comparative passivity of women, with men wearing snug-fitting button jackets with breeches perfect for marching around outdoors, and ladies now but a mere flimsy underskirt, great for the bedroom. So within this context, Rosaline and Celia's friendship comes across as all the more precious and special. They are both women and acknowledge that they are weaker than men, yet were prepared to embark upon an utterly exhausting and hazardous journey in order to stay together. Celia has no male disguise to psychologically prop herself up and can only weakly utter, "I pray you, bear with me, I can go no further." But Celia and Rosaline are not the only characters in As You Like It to escape the poisonous court atmosphere, instigated by brother-to-brother hatred and jealousy. Adam's devotion to Orlando is similarly touching. He's a long-standing servant to Orlando's family, and in Act 2, Scene 3, shows great faithfulness and affection as he reveals a plot to kill him. He cries out in bewilderment, "Oh, my gentle master! Oh, my sweet master! Oh, you memory of old Sir Rowland's! Why, what make you here? Why are you virtuous? Why do people love you? Know you not, master, to some kind of men, their graces serve them but as enemies?" The repeated oaths, warm, determined am I, and adjectives gentle and sweet, reveal Adam's genuine love for Orlando, who he believes is a virtuous man. Hence his confusion and rage that such goodness can provoke cruel reactions in others. Of course, Adam's friendship with Orlando is of a different kind to Celia and Rosaline's due to their unequal status. Adam is technically Orlando's servant, or at least certainly was servant to his father. Nonetheless, the same principles of platonic faithfulness, respect, and the desire to stay together coexist between both pairings. Indeed, it could be argued that Adam's lifelong service to Orlando's family results in an extraordinary act of kindness that the majority of equal in status friends would flinch at. Having dismissed Orlando's home figuratively and dramatically as a butchery, a place where human beings can potentially be slaughtered in the same cold way as animals are for steaks, chops and sausages, Adam goes on to offer Orlando 500 crowns, the thrifty hire I saved under your father, which I did store to be my foster nurse, when service should in my old limbs lie lame and unregarded age in corners thrown. So Adam has just saved up money towards a pension equivalent to ensure he can support himself when his body and frame no longer allow him to act usefully as a servant. And here, in the space of a few seconds, just a few tiny little seconds, he's offered to give the full amount to a much younger man of a much higher class to save his life. The concept of the money being a foster nurse hints at Adam's own isolation and lack of biological family within the world. He has no children who could look after him. Hence both his prudence in saving up this amount of money, but also his apparent recklessness for his own future security. Nonetheless, Adam's selfless act shows the humanising power of fellowship and friendship. As a friend, you do not necessarily choose the most sensible option, but you do what you think is right to help your fellow human being.